everyone. I am so excited to be here. We're going to have an amazing training today. I hope everyone's ready. I'm just kind of waiting for Christine to join us. Cool. Hi, Christine. She is here. Our guest of honor is here, guys. Hi, Jennifer. Welcome, ladies. Everyone hopping on. Hi, Catherine. Long time no speak. So, Christine, if you can just request to join the training, I think if you're on your phone, you should have the setting to do it right there. Hi, Meryl. Welcome. Guys, today's going to be exciting. We are going to be talking about how to get to six figures using podcast interviews, and we have the best person who has done that herself, going to teach you all the secrets and the tips and the tools, and answer all of the questions that you have, which are probably a lot, right? Hi, Melissa. Hi, Meryl. So, Christine, we are excitedly waiting for you. I'm just gonna wave to y'all while we do this and go.
Hi!
Welcome!
Yay! I'm actually gonna see if I can flip my phone if it'll work. Nope, that doesn't work. Perfect.
Yeah, I think you're backwards now. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Cool.
Hi.
Welcome. We're so
Thank
happy
you.
to have you.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, guys, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Christine because she's just amazing and there's so much that you need to know about her. I'll give you a brief intro of myself, but I'm not the important person here today. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Barbara Giuliano. I am the host of The Land of Me Coaches. I am a business and confidence coach, and I work with coaches all over the world to help them grow their business. And today we have the lovely Christine McAllister, an amazing friend, incredible colleague, and just overall amazing woman. So Christine McAllister is an entrepreneur, business coach, and the author of the #1 bestseller, The Income Replacement Formula, which is an amazing book. Okay, I read it I listened to it while I got LASIK surgery. Amazing.
Did you? Oh, I'm honored.
Yeah. 7 simple steps to doing what you love and making 6 figures from anywhere. Guys, go get a book. Go get the book, like right now. An expert in turning tragedy into triumph, she founded her company Life with Passion after the full-term stillbirth of her first daughter, Maeve. She's been featured in Inc., Business Insider, The Huffington Post, and Entrepreneurs on Fire podcasts. Amazing. Christine helps high achievers all over the world to replace their incomes and then some, and to quit and stay out of their 9-to-5s by building businesses out of their passions. Christine and her husband and rainbow baby Fiora live with their 2 rescue dogs near the Arabian horses in Louisville, Kentucky.
That's me.
Christine, thank you for being here. So many people want to know about you.
Thanks so much for having me. This is going to be an awesome conversation. I'm excited to share with you everything that we can fit in this training about how to take this strategy and use it to grow your business.
Yeah. Okay. Exciting. Hi, everyone. Hi. I see so many of you hopping on. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, why you decided to become an entrepreneur, and how podcasts have impacted your business?
Totally. So I have started 4 businesses now. So Life with Passion is my 4th successful business. And I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was one of those kids who was like side hustling after school, pet sitting, because I obviously love animals, and selling lemonade and cookies at the front of the neighborhood with my best friend. And I was always like looking for ways to do that. And I knew as early as college that I really wanted to work full-time for myself. It took me about 5 years of working in 9-to-5s and building a side hustle to develop the confidence to quit and run that first business, which is an online marketing agency, on my own.
Mm-hmm.
But when I quit, I replaced my income in the first month. And so that began my journey really of full-time entrepreneurship. And that was in 2010. So it's been almost a decade of entrepreneurship now. And along the way, started a couple of other side businesses, including a horse breeding business, and have always just been really focused on doing things I'm passionate about. Hence the name of my company, Life with Passion, right? So as you mentioned in my bio, I started this company, which I feel like really encompasses my true mission and why I'm here in this world. I started this company after I lost my daughter, Maeve, and I did that because I realized that I had a choice to make. Was I going to continue to play small and be behind the scenes, or was I going to help as many other women and aspiring entrepreneurs as I could to go from surviving to thriving? And I chose the latter. So that's what I've been doing for the past almost 4 years. And I got into podcasting actually in a really accidental way. And I just want to start by saying that, because I think a lot of times it's like, oh, I did this or I did that, and it was like so strategic. But I think then that means that if we don't have that clarity, we're like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me, right? And you probably have some examples to share in that in your own business. But I listened to podcasts. I was a podcast listener. And I had somebody reach out to me when I was pregnant with Fee, who's now 2.5. And she said, hey, would you be on my podcast? And I was like, oh, okay. I mean,
Why not?
why not? Exactly. And it was near the end of my pregnancy. And so because I was high risk and I was highly anxious, I was going to the hospital and the doctor's office a lot for extra visits. And so one time I had checked myself in for like volunteer extra monitoring, and I'm sitting in triage in the labor and delivery unit where they're like deciding if they're going to admit me. And it's time for my podcast interview. Because I hadn't planned it. I think it's one of the times I had been like sent up from the doctor, actually. Anyway, so I was like, this doesn't fit my structured schedule. But I just told the nurse, like, sorry, I have an interview. I'm going to need you to leave the room for a few minutes. She was like, okay. So I did this interview for my hospital bed, like 9 months pregnant, and I loved it. And so I paid attention to that, and I decided that I was going to make this a proactive strategy. So it was 2.5 years ago, and I've been on over 60 podcasts now. And so I have a lot to say about why they're so awesome and how you can use them too.
That is so exciting. Your story just kind of setting the mood.
Yeah, girl.
Your story of your first podcast kind of reminds me of my first podcast. It was a time in my house where they were like remodeling, and there was so much noise and so many people walking in and out, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. I had to literally go outside in my car and do the podcast there. And then people were cutting the grass and I had to like drive away. It was crazy. But it is so much fun, and I'm so excited to learn your ninja skills.
Yay!
You've actually, I've done podcast interviews, and there are definitely a tactic that I use here and there, but you have really mastered it. Like, you tripled your income last year with that, right?
Yeah, doubled it. Yeah. So and doubled my list size, my audience, and all of this. Like, I am so much a fan of this being a major strategy in my business without it taking up all my time either, right? Of it just being a really leveraged way. Whether you work full-time in your business or you have a side hustle or whatever, I really believe that it can work. I mean, I only have part-time childcare, and my daughter's 2.5. And so if you know anything about kids, you ain't getting much done when you don't have childcare. And so I've been able to build and sustain a 6-figure business and grow it with largely this strategy for visibility. And of course, it funnels into other things that we could talk about. But in terms of getting in front of and building real relationships with new people, this is my favorite.
Oh, okay, cool. It's going to be your favorite too really soon. So guys, let us know if you're here. Drop an emoji. As we move along, ask questions because we're going to go back and answer them. We've been asking questions all week long, so we kind of know what you want to hear. But if something comes up, don't be afraid. We don't bite. But I'm going to start asking you a ton of things because we're all so curious. Is that okay?
Please. I'm an open book with this stuff. Yep.
Okay, cool. So what are your top 3 tips to get more podcast interviews?
So it depends on the stage of your experience with this. But I would say it doesn't matter if you don't have an email list. It doesn't matter if you don't have a massive audience. There's a podcast that's right for you now. Mm-hmm. So my first tip would be to start now. Start now. It's not too early. You are not too soon in business. You can go on podcasts and start profiting from them and benefiting from them right now. So that's the first thing to just like get out of the way. This applies to everyone.
Yeah, because I feel like most people are like, oh, but I'm not there yet. I'm not an expert or like, yeah. Okay. So I like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think you and I know a lot of people who are just getting started in their businesses or are newer or looking to replace their incomes, side hustling, whatever, all the way through, you know, kind of the entrepreneur of spectrum. And what I know for sure is that just like stages of business, there are so many different types of podcasts. So I recommend that you match up your stage of business with a podcast. Go on one. I guess this could be a second tip. Start now, right? You know, we've had some questions about like, how the heck do I find someone to pitch to? Because there are like probably hundreds of thousands of podcasts. I recommend that you find and hone your skills on small podcasts. It's the equivalent of going on local television as opposed to the Today Show for your first TV appearance. Now, that's a different level of visibility. But the great thing about it is like, if you go on a more laid back, smaller show, you have a chance to hone your skills and still get visible in front of people for free without freaking out and losing it on some massive show and having that be like a public failure that you're going to humiliate yourself with forever. So you want to look for the smaller podcasts to get experience and still be getting in front of people. Like I always tell my clients, I want you to be making money while you're figuring this stuff out in business, right? There's no reason it can't be both. It's just matching up one that feels more comfortable to you, and that's going to be a smaller podcast.
Perfect. I love that. Okay. So start now. Great tip.
Yep.
Find smaller podcasts to start with.
Yep.
Are those like the 2 main ones? Do you want to keep it at that?
Start now. Small. Oh, no. I have one more, and we can dive into this one more. You need a freaking good personalized pitch. So one of my jobs as a 9-to-5 was in 9-to-5 was as a college professor. And then another one was as a career counselor. So I worked in academia a lot and as an advisor and like with people helping them to find their dream jobs. And one of the things that I saw over and over and over, that was a massive mistake that I see translated into business and specifically podcast pitching is that people use the same pitch, copy and paste, submit, copy and paste, submit, just like, and I'm sure you've all been guilty of this because it's the easy way, taking a resume and hitting upload on CareerBuilder or whatever site and then to every job that you think, you know, you might possibly have someone look at you for. That falls flat. When you are pitching to a podcast, you are pitching to a person. And it's no different than talking to them in person and trying to convince them, sometimes a total stranger, that they should have you on their show and share you and champion you and promote you to their audience. And it needs to be a two-way street from the very beginning. So you need to show why you would be a great guest, and you need to do your research on that show, on that person, on what they cover, and reflect that in your pitch. There's nothing more important that you could do to get on that show and set up yourself for having a great relationship, a great conversation, that leads to great things later on, including paying clients, than starting with putting some time and attention, energy into the pitch.
That is such a good one, because I feel like a lot of people are like, okay, how do I get into the podcast, right? Like, what's in it for me? But
Yep.
that's kind of like a mindset shift where it's like, how can I support them, right?
Yep.
Like, how can I be like custom tailored to them? So that's really, really good. I'm gonna go into a question that so many people had for us this week, which was like, how do you find podcasts? Like, what do we do?
Yes, such a good question. I personally believe that we often are working with people who are maybe a step, 2 steps, 5 steps behind us, right? In terms of the clients that we're supporting in service-based businesses. And so I would ask yourself, like, what have I listened to in the past? Right? I mean, it could be something literally that simple. I can remember I was in a Facebook group of someone's, and she was further ahead than me, and she had a podcast. And so I think she was actually the first person that I pitched, because I was like, she seems kind of cool. She seems like to talk about the kind of stuff that I like, and she's got a podcast. It's not super big. She seems approachable enough. I'm going to figure out what she's talking about and see where I could fit in there. And then when I got accepted to that one, because I had written like a really heartfelt pitch, and this is before I was able to say, hey, I've been on over 60 podcasts, join the club, right? When I got accepted to that one, there is a great tool that you can use inside of iTunes. If you use iTunes, I use it on the desktop because it's easier. Open up the actual program, iTunes. Go find the podcast in the store, in the podcast store. And then when you open up the description for the podcast, so let's say it's like Entrepreneurs on Fire, right? It's a big one. Pull up the Entrepreneurs on Fire page where it has all the episodes and the dates and the description. And above all of that, like to the right of the picture, is something that says details, ratings and reviews, and related. That related tab is your friend. And often it is podcasts that are similar in size. But what it means is these are podcasts that listeners of this show have also subscribed to. So chances are there are going to be some good fits in there for you.
Ninja tip.
Right? Such a pro ninja tip. So something that you can use today. If you have a podcast that you like, see if they take pitches, right? Assuming it's not a solo show, they probably do. And then go over to the related tab and see what else is there and do that same research on them.
So good, guys. Are you loving this? We had a question, so I just want to answer it really quick. So
I love
we
questions.
have a replay? Absolutely, we will have a replay. Just make sure that you're signed up to the email. And then Talina wants to know, hi Talina, what if you only have a few episodes on your podcast? Can you still go for a podcast interview?
Talina, I don't have my own podcast. I don't want my own podcast. I think like sometimes, yeah, totally. So congratulations on having a podcast. That may actually give you an advantage because you're a podcaster too, right? But I don't have my own. I have only been featured on other people's. And so absolutely you're ready. You're further ahead. You actually get what it takes to be on the other side of the computer, on the other side of the mic, to produce podcast episodes. And so you're going to be a total natural at being able to speak their language and provide value because you get it.
Good. I love that. Oh, okay. So let's see. Okay, so some people were wondering, because like they're new, and I know you already gave them a tip, which is like go for smaller podcasts, get used to it, still get in front of people. But like, how can they move through that fear of like actually taking action and pitching to the podcast and doing all the things?
Yeah, totally. I mean, there is such resistance. Like, it just feels weird to put yourself out there. And like, what if you don't hear back? And right. And you know, and anyone who knows me knows I love talking mindset. But one of the things that I've realized about this strategy is that it's so amazing for people like me who are introverts. Now, disclaimer, like you hear me talk about stuff I'm really passionate about, and you would not get the impression that I am introverted. But I am.
High five.
High five, right? I'm what they call an expressive introvert. And so I love people, but I get my energy from being alone. The wonderful thing about a podcast, and this just kind of gives me chills, is that it is a one-on-one conversation. Like 99% of them are not recorded live. You are only interacting, usually over audio only, with one other person. And so it's like a coffee chat where you're being interviewed and people are just asking you to talk about the stuff that you love talking about anyway. And if you're an introvert, you probably like in-depth conversations as opposed to being in a room that's a party where you know no one and it's all small talk, right? Like, I'm not so big on the small talk.
Introduce yourself and be like, "Hi, I'm Barbs."
Right. Hi, what do you do? Hi, what do you do? Like, where's the wine? So I think that it's such a good opportunity to just have a real in-depth conversation with one person and just be your real self. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, the more real you are, the more people remember you. People who go on shows and have the polished shtick and they say the same thing over and over, they come across that way. It's like the host doesn't even need to be there. The guest is just like, and it's not fun or interesting. If you listen to podcasts, you probably have heard ones like that, where you're like, Skip thought this person would be cool because they're famous, but they're really lame, right? So it truly is a conversation with one other person that then gets shared. And if you can remember that calling it a pitch and calling it this and all of that is just, it's just a formal way of saying like getting connected.
Fancy terms, yeah.
It is. Like if you do coffee chats, if you have friends who are in the online space, like chances are some of them have a podcast. You know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. And your job is just to show them why you could help. Why you can help their people. No different than if you're talking to somebody in an actual coffee shop or you're talking to a person on a sales call if you're at that point in your business, right? Or you're writing a post that gets posted in this group or in your own group or whatever. It's literally no different. It is a one-on-one conversation.
So good. I love that. So introverts, this is your tactic. You can do it. We have a question that leads really well into my next question because, okay, so Harpreet says, is there a formal, I'm sorry I'm leaning so in, guys. I just got LASIK surgery and my eyes are so blurry today. Is there a formal way to pitch yourself to a podcast? I wonder if I could reach out and even do a quick video introduction of myself and sharing my story and how I can help them. So that goes really well with my next question, which is like, okay, so now tell us, how do we pitch?
Yeah.
Or, so I know you can't tell us like the whole thing, but just give us like a little.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously when you're customizing to the shows you want to be on, there's some nuance there, right? And like but the general pieces that you need to know are just like that question. You need to know what you can talk about, right? So there's some mindset work around being willing to have areas of expertise, which ties into knowing your niche and having an offer and having that stuff sorted before you get here. So like in my book, shameless plug, The Income Replacement Formula, it's 7 simple steps, okay? So like step 1 is deciding that you're going to do this thing, that it's happening. It's inevitable. You're going to replace your income and quit your job. Step 2 is niching, because everything else follows out of that. Step 2 is mindset. Hello, Christine. It is Friday. Step 3 is niching. Step 4 is developing an offer. And then step 5 is marketing. Step 6 is visibility. So we're talking about steps 5 and 6. You already need to have some foundations laid in your business and be doing that mindset work continually to remind yourself that you have something to offer. Otherwise, you will stop yourself from pitching. But what I know to be true and what Barb's knows to be true 100% is you totally have something to offer. That's why we do what we do, to help you bring it to the world, right? And what you have is unique and what you have is worth sharing. So in practicality, in the way that that shows up in the pitch, 3 to 5 topics that you could talk about. Okay? 3 to 5 topics that you could talk about. Since I've been doing this for a little while, I have a few topics that I will choose from based on what the show is about, right? But it is typically like a bullet long line that's a topic. So to give you some examples, and Barb, maybe you can share some of yours. I would say for me, my typical topics tend to be how to replace your income, quit your job in 7 simple steps, because that's what my book is about, right? How to overcome fear and self-doubt to become a successful entrepreneur.
That's one of mine too.
Yes, this is why we love each other. How to turn tragedy into triumph, right? That's a more personal one. So I don't only go on super business focused podcasts, because I like to go and talk to people about how to empower them to use the worst thing that ever happened to them to live their best life, right? That's part of my brand. And I happen to use entrepreneurship as that vehicle, right? To help them live that. But I mean, that gets me on places like mom podcasts and stuff like that, that aren't necessarily just super like strategy, business focused all the time. So those are 3 for me. Barbs, I know you said that and those are pretty different. I know you said overcoming fear and self-doubt is one for you as well. What would you say other ones for you are?
I've talked about growing your own Facebook group, how to market.
Yes.
Like Facebook groups is one of like my main topics.
Yes.
Fear, self-doubt, and confidence related. That's like another area that I pitch myself through. And I also talk a lot about like getting fully booked in your one-on-one coaching practice and the steps necessary to get there.
Yeah, so good. So what we both have here then are a mix of niche and broader topics. Fear and self-doubt in order to grow your business are very general, because almost every entrepreneur struggles with it, because unless you're like a sociopath, because we're trained to think like entrepreneurs. We're trained, or employees. We are trained to think in school and in our jobs. We're trained to think that that's the safe route. And so our brains try to keep us safe, keep us stuck. I say to our brains, safe is same, even if it sucks, right? It's like, even if we want something different up here. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's like work, right? It's like working out to do something different. So we have this more general topic, and then you have these specific strategies, these more niched ones that are like, okay, if a podcast host wants to talk about entrepreneur mindset, you could talk about that. If they want to learn for themselves, if they know their audience wants to learn about Facebook groups or one-on-one practices for coaches, then you have those to offer too. So it's a great mix.
I love that. Love that. Okay. So that's how you pitch. There was one more thing I wanted to know. We all want to know. But let me answer some questions. So Meryl says, okay, so I've never looked for horse-related podcasts. And I can talk about my horse and me and maybe saddles, but I'm no expert really. Is this something I can do?
It's a great question, Meryl. And remember, an expert is, you may not know this. So the definition of an expert in a courtroom is somebody who knows more than 80% of the people in an average room. So if you're walking around the grocery store, and I don't know about you, but my grocery store in Kentucky is a very interesting place. It's like seen at Walmart in real life. Okay. So shoes are not a given. So if I know more about saddles than 80% of the people in my Kroger, or even like maybe a person who's bought one saddle in their life, then I'm an expert. So that is more defining yourself and working on your mindset around that. than saying, well, and I'm obviously joking here, but like, I don't hand make saddles back here from like random pieces of leather. Therefore, I'm not an expert, right? Like you are, because you run a business selling saddles and you have a passion for saddles and you know the parts, right? So that is the piece that I would say. And when you believe that, then it's just a matter of, I know there are a bunch of horse podcasts. Obviously, I'm a horse person too. And some of them follow me on Instagram because I post pictures of my horse, right? So then it's just a matter of, hey, which ones have topics that relate to anything about saddles, and finding them and pitching them. And I will add, like, we talked about the most important part of the pitch is how you can talk to your audience, right? But just like to kind of wrap up, like, how do you pitch? You need to have the topics. It's really, really important because they're going to be scanning that email and they need to catch the eye. So you want to use bullets, not paragraphs. 3 to 5 topics. Show them in bullet points that you know what their show is about and why you will have a great interview together, that you did your research, and then tell them how you're going to help promote the show and make it a win-win. Yep.
Okay.
Even if you just have personal friends on your Facebook, that you'll share it there. If you hang out in any Facebook groups, that you'll share it there. If you have more of an audience, that you'll share it with them as well. That you're not just a person, again, who's going to come in and be like,
let me take your people.
Yep,
and that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So those are the basics of a really, really kick-ass podcast pitch.
This is so juicy. I love it. I want to just kind of like talk a little bit about the expert thing. And I don't want to like take forever, but you're always an expert to someone. So like you said, like it really depends in the room that you're in, you know? So like you will always be an expert. Your 100% will always be someone else's 80%. So it's what Christine said. It's a lot of mindset work and owning what you do and your niche and your message and all of that good stuff. For example, I hula hoop, and like in this room, I'm pretty sure that I'm an expert to everyone because I could probably do a few more tricks than you. But if I go to like a festival where there's like people hula hooping with fire, I'm not gonna be, right? So like there's always gonna be someone that knows a little more and someone that knows a little bit less, and that happens for everyone. So own it, girl. Yeah. Okay, so Kelly says, this is so awesome. Thank you both for putting this on today.
Yay, Kelly!
So let me ask you, so another question. How do we actually make money from podcasting? So I'm super curious about this because I know you've done really well with that. Yeah,
it's such a great question. So I love podcasts because they're free.
No Facebook ads.
Right, among the other things that we've been talking about. But you do want to think about having some really simple structures in place. You don't have to have them in order to pitch a podcast. You just have to have them either planned or set up by the time your podcast
goes live.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll give you a great example. Like when I use this example again because we did a lot of prep for this because the audience size, like when I went on Entrepreneurs on Fire, I didn't have everything set up to be able to send people to where I wanted to send them when my interview went live. I just knew I wanted to create a page called lifewithpassion.com/fire, I think. And so that's all I needed to know is like where I wanted to send them and what was going to be there by the time the interview aired. So that then I could go back and be like, okay, now we have XYZ long to get this thing ready, right? So for you, that could be an opt-in if you have one. If it makes sense with what you're talking about that day, it could be a freebie. Very, very simple freebie. If you don't have a freebie, you don't have the bandwidth, you don't have an email list, then it could be follow me on Instagram. You know, I'll send you a DM, right? It could even be a free 15-minute, 30-minute coaching call or consultation to help them with their next step with your thing. It could be join my Facebook group. It could be any of those things or some funnel therein in order to help them take this relationship to the next level, right? Like I was just talking to an online friend and I think we were in Voxer. And like I met her in person, we were getting ready to spend some time together. And I said, oh, can I have your phone number to text you? We're taking our relationship to the text level, right? And that's my cheesy Friday mom joke for you. So the thing is, you just need a way for them to connect with you further. Now, sure, there's like more strategy that we could dive into around that. None of it needs to be a barrier to entry for you getting on podcasts. You just want to make it easy for people to connect with you. You can develop more out later, but if they want to find you, they will. And you want to have one main way that you're going to ask them to do that. So whether it's an opt-in or follow me on Instagram or join my Facebook group, they're going to ask you at the end of the show, how can people find out more about you? And the best way is to send them to one specific place.
I love that. Okay. Yeah, because then from there, there's so much that you could do. Right? Like
exactly.
once you build that connection, the podcast, you've directed them to the right thing. There's so much nurturing and selling that you can do afterwards.
Yes. And that is then, to answer the question fully, that's how you make money from podcasts, right? Like you make it possible. You're making it possible for people to find you and then connect with you further, as opposed to like other forms of media where it might go to a really broad base, but you don't get the chance to say, here's my opt-in, here's my this, here's my that. It's like, if you love this conversation and you want to continue it and take our relationship to the next level, I'm a real person, come and connect with me. And they will. And so they will come to you 100 times more ready to check out your products, your services, all of that stuff, because they already feel like they know you because they just spent half an hour listening to you.
I love that you just mentioned that because, okay, so next week we're doing a training on Facebook group marketing, right? And it's like amazing, but I feel like I have personally fallen in love with someone just by listening to a podcast. While in Facebook groups, it may take a little bit more nurturing and a little bit more effort to have someone fall in love with you to that level. I think podcasts can actually like accelerate that process because they're like in there with you. Like they're listening and they're like, yeah, I get this. Yeah, you get me. Oh my God, this is awesome. And like, they're just like, and oh my God, I just learned this new word. I'm not going to say it because I'm going to say it wrong, but they like fall in love with you.
Enamored? Right, is that the word you're thinking?
Yes! That's the word. I was saying, amuse, and my friend, she's like a doctor. She has a doctorate in English. She's just like, that's not the right word. You should say enamored. And I'm like, oh, I like
You're like, how many languages do you speak?
Yeah. But good. Okay, I love that. So Laura, we had a few people jump in. So welcome. Hi, Teresa. Everyone jumping in. Laura says, my question, do you offer the show questions to the podcast host? Oh, that's a good question. Or does the host typically offer them to you in advance of the recording, or is it usually off cuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking it, because now we're talking a little bit about like the ins and outs of the actual interview, right? And the truth is that every show is different. So there are a lot of shows and a lot of hosts that prefer to have a genuine conversation. And I think it's probably a reflection of like just that desire for authenticity that if you ask the same questions in the same way every time, like it gets stale really fast. And so what I'm seeing as a trend is a lot less people sending me questions than they did 2 years ago, which is really freaky when you're starting out.
And nerve-wracking.
Yes. And so that's where mindset work comes into play. But here's what I want to tell you. Like, you know, my background also includes being like a documentarian, a video editor, and like all this stuff in media, right? And these people are either editing their interviews themselves or they're having someone else do it. And when they edit, they take out things like big pauses or me sneezing or my dog barking. Not that I recommend you have a dog sitting next to you, watching squirrels out the window while you're trying to record. But like, they're going to edit out. If you say something and stop in the middle and go, That's not going anywhere. I hate it. It's stupid. You can literally stop and tell the interviewer, I don't like the way that sounded. I want to start that sentence over. And they'll go, okay. And they'll make a little note, and they'll come back to it in editing when the interview is over, because they're going to be taking out long pauses, breaths, microphone noise, whatever. Anyway, but you never send them over your questions because it's their show. So that would be like, and it's a great question. The only time I can imagine someone doing that is like interviewing like a Hollywood celebrity or music star or something, where they have, you're not allowed to ask me about these things. Typically like their scandals or their broken relationships or whatever. And you may only focus on these topics. And otherwise, like, I'm not doing the interview, or I will get up and leave, or I will be a diva or whatever. That's not you, right? So your job here is to be as helpful to them as you can. And you can totally ask, hey, do you have sample questions? But here's the thing. If you've done your research on the show, you know how they run it. If you've listened to recent episodes, another ninja tip, you know what the format is. So even if they don't have questions, you can see the ones that they typically ask. But some of them will send you questions ahead of time. And some of them do ask the same questions of every guest. So it really does depend on the host and on the show. But you're going to know that walking in, because you will have listened to it already to decide if you even want to mess with it and pitch it.
That's good. So so should you ask like ahead of time, like, hey, if I say something wrong, can I just let you know and pause? Because what if they don't edit it? Like, do all of them edit it?
Yep. I'd say 99% of the ones that I've done do some editing, but you can totally ask and give them a heads up and just say, hey, is it okay with you if I, start over? Most of them built in time for a pre-chat so that you can establish, like, before the interview itself, like usually on the same day, but you're going to chat with them for 5 or 10 minutes ahead of time, and establish a little bit of chemistry so that it's not like as much like a super awkward first date when you talk to them on camera or on mic in front of their audience.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So we have a question, and so Harpreet asks, how simple is it to start my own podcast? Thank you for answering my previous question, by the way. So like Christine said, she doesn't have her podcast, but
I have a lot of friends who have podcasts, and they all keep asking me when I'm going to start one. But what I know from my friends who do it is you can keep it really simple. I mean, I know some people who have very, very low key, even record, like they don't even have a microphone. They just record with their earbuds, and they ask their friends to be guests. And the barrier to entry is very, very low. You don't have to do any editing afterward. You don't have to have an intro or an outro. You don't have to have a fancy graphic. You don't have to have any of that stuff. The biggest thing that I would say, though, is that you're going to learn a lot about whether or not you want your own podcast by being on other people's. Because the big thing about podcasting is, like, you've got to be uber consistent. Uber consistent. It's not a matter of going out there and build it and they will come, just like anything else in business. You've got to constantly promote it and be really, really clear on what you want it to do for your business before you go to the trouble of adding another level of complexity to your business, which is ultimately what it is. So it's, in my opinion, not the easiest way to grow and scale a business is to have your own podcast. Some other people would tell you differently, but that's my opinion. If you're thinking about starting one, you're going to learn a lot of mistakes to avoid and get publicity and clients in the process by going on other people's first.
I kind of even feel like going on other people's is like so much easier.
Oh, it's
like,
100 times easier.
It skyrockets the process so much because it's like those podcasts, they already have an audience. Even if it's a small audience, like you don't have to work like around getting an audience. You don't really have to do like the technical stuff.
Yep.
I don't know. Just like from this conversation, it just feels like, to me, the smart thing for me to do.
Yeah, for sure. It's simplicity, right? And you and I are both about simplicity and the path of least resistance. And and what's easy and fun, because otherwise what's the point of building a business, right?
Yeah.
What are you passionate about? And if you love talking to people, then go on other people's shows.
I love that. Okay. So those were all the questions that we
Oh,
had.
okay.
This was awesome. I want to know, you have something super amazing around podcasting, and I want you to tell us what that is because it's so exciting.
Oh my gosh, thank you. So obviously you all can tell that I am so passionate about this. And if you all have any more questions, like please drop them below, live or on the replay, tag me, I'll come back and answer. I have, for those of you who are like, I want someone to help me pull out my and create my own personalized pitch and help me identify those shows and help me actually pitch them, and also help me learn, which is a piece we didn't talk about, which we can if you want or not, Barbs, but like how to then take what you've done in the interview and leverage it and continue to leverage it, both in terms of building a relationship with that host to turn them into a potential referrer, turn them into someone who can give you a testimonial, turn them into somebody who has you back on the show, turn them into a business bestie, all of that stuff, as well as continue to use it to build credibility to new audiences, not just a one and done. I have a program called the Profit from Podcast Interviews Intensive. And it is me walking you through this entire method in 3 hours and customizing it all to you so that you can get 90 days worth of work done on this, 3 months worth of work done in 3 hours, and just knock it out and like blast your way to being on that road to 6 figures by having the pitch, by actually learning how to identify and pitching those first few podcasts, like with my help live on Zoom.
And finding them too, right?
Yeah,
like,
finding them. How do we know which ones are the right ones? Let's actually customize the pitch we just created and pitch them. And then let's learn how to make the actual interview effective, what to do pre, during, and post to get the most leverage out of every single interview. Learn my system that gets that other podcast hosts have actually grabbed and have been like, I'm going to teach this because you do it better than anyone I've ever seen.
I love that. Honestly, what other person to teach you and guide you through this process than her? Like, I think I'm gonna start calling you like the podcast interview queen or like something along those lines, because I have never heard so much juiciness around podcasting than today.
Thank you. I am so excited to be able to share this with you all because I really think it's underutilized. And especially, for solopreneurs, people who are getting started, it's not something I spend a ton of time on. So if you're worried about, this is going to take too much time, whatever, it's such a leverage strategy. Doesn't need to take much time. It gets easier the more you do it, like anything else. And you get to have that really fun, like as featured on banner, right? On your website where you take their logos and you say, I've been on these podcasts and you can listen to me here, and all those things that we really, really think are awesome that those people like way ahead of us have, like you can start having that now.
And also like it gets easier, right? Like once you get over that like initial hump of like getting on some podcast, getting that feature banner, like it probably gets so much easier for you to apply for bigger and grander podcasts that are going to get you bigger and grander results.
Yes, definitely. There have been podcasts that I've done that have directly resulted in like 5 figures in revenue from one interview,
Wow.
And then there are ones that like I'll get a bunch of people listen to the interview and go, hey, will you come on my podcast? So I don't even have to pitch them, right? And so it just it snowballs. And you can expect it, if you line up all these pieces right, you can expect it to really massively grow your audience with people who, like you said, they already feel like they know, like, and trust you. And so much of your work is done because you just had a real conversation.
I love that. So I'm going to post the link to your intensive below.
Thank you.
I think we have... does anyone else have another questions before we wrap up about being on interviews, podcasting, the intensive, anything else. Christine, is there anywhere else where you want to direct this amazing viewers? What's wrong with me? Viewers.
Yeah. So definitely we can hop on the phone or PM about the podcast intensive if you're wanting more questions about that, or you're like, I'm not sure this is right for my stage of business or whatever. And all that information is found on the link that Barb's gonna drop. If you're wanting to learn more about the 7 simple steps in my book, the other place that you can go is to lifewithpassion.com/free chapter, where you can get a free chapter of the book that outlines the 7 steps. So you can kind of go, okay, this is the step I'm working on. This is where I need to focus right now to make it really simple for me to grow my business, including podcasts if I want, to 6 figures and beyond.
I love that. Get the book, get the intensive. Like, I highly recommend them both. Okay.
Thank you. And look for Barb's on some more podcasts soon.
Watch out. Watch out, world. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I mean, this has been amazing. Christine, thank you so much for being here. I feel like so many people needed to hear this, and there were so many questions that so many people had, and you just nailed it, each of them.
I'm so glad. Should we like give them a little preview of what's coming up next? If you love this conversation, because how fun are the two of us together? Let's be honest.
Yes.
You want to go ahead? You want to?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So, you have gotten to learn about podcasts, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. And next week, at 10 a.m. Eastern, same day, next Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, we are going to be we're going to flip the mic on Barb here, and I'm going to be interviewing her to learn about how to hit 10K plus months, so 5-figure months, using Facebook groups. This is her ninja skill. Well, one of many, but one of the things she loves most to talk about. And she's so good at it. And if you've been a member of this group for long, you know what I'm talking about. It's an awesome place to hang out, right? And so I'm going to bring her over to my Facebook group, and we are going to do an interview like this one where she shares all her best stuff about how to use Facebook groups to hit 10K plus months without it taking over your life, and without it just feeling like annoying or gross, or like you're, shouting into the void and getting crickets in return. Like, she's so good at all of that. And so my Facebook group is called The Passionate and Profitable Entrepreneur. If you already know you want to go, hop on in there and you will be on the list. We will be sharing more links about how to register and get the replay in the next couple of days. But heads up, next Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, come listen to your girl Barb's teach us all about how to make serious cash from Facebook groups. I am so pumped to hear this from you.
I'm so excited. Yeah, guys, it's going to be so much fun. Kind of just exactly like this, but flipping over the screens a little bit, and yeah, go join her group. Let's do this. Let's continue the party.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, everyone. So many people are saying thank you, and I just want to say thank you one more time because this was amazing. Your time was so valuable, and can't wait to send out the replay because I feel like so many people couldn't be here live.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And seriously, you all, like, I want to hear what you're doing with this. I want to hear if you're going on podcasts, like which ones you're pitching, which ones you felt inspired to go after and get on. Like, I want to hear them. So send them to me. I love cheering you on. And I want to know what you took away from this. So let me know in the comments, or if you already know where you're going to pitch, let me know that too so I can cheer you on.
Where are you going? Awesome. Thank you so much. Have an amazing rest of your weekend. We'll talk soon.
Thanks.
Thanks, Christine.
Bye.